friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all keeping well and warm. It's a bit nippy here in the UK at the moment. Okay, today's project is Red Panda in Pastel. Now you might think, well, that's not pastel that you're working with, and no, it's not. I'm using partial sheet of the Clairefontaine pastel matte paper, and to speed things along a little bit I'm going to be using black and white gouache and just applying a little bit of a base coat where I need it. So this is something you can do with the Clairefontaine pastel matte. I think it was predominantly produced for pastel, but you can use a variety of mediums on it. It's really great stuff. Okay, so just putting in a base coat where the white is with white gouache, and a base coat where the darker areas are going to be with black gouache. It dries in minutes. If you're going to do this before you apply pastel on top, make sure that you really do make sure it's dry. So even if it's blasting it with a hairdryer for a couple of minutes, doesn't take long at all. And the thing is with gouache, when it dries with a gritty texture to it. So it's very much like the pastel matte paper in feel, and it will take multiple layers of your pastel. So moving on, let's have a look. So we're just completing, I've sped this up really quite quickly. I think it's at 300% because yeah, nobody wants to sit and watch paint dry. If you're here, you're probably here for the pastel work. Okay, so just speeding through with an acrylic brush. You can use any brushes if you want to have a go, put in some base coats with gouache down. You can use watercolour brushes, acrylic brushes. It's all water mixable. It's paint. Gouache is an opaque watercolour, that's all it is, so it won't damage any brushes or anything like that. And so just speeding along now, just getting a little bit of a darker coat where the blacks are going to go and the darker colours. So the gouache that I'm using is by Loxley Arts, but obviously any gouache will do. You can see the finished painting top left hand corner of the screen, so you know what I'm aiming towards. And I think before you start doing something like this, if you've not tried this before, try and map out in your mind, or maybe make some notes, what you want to achieve with this underlayer. This underlayer is an ugly stage, and you'll see through this painting that there are many ugly stages. It's not right away until quite towards the end of the video you'll see that the panda starts to come together. So it does look quite ugly for quite a long time, but trust your techniques, trust your materials, and just keep plodding on. When you get to that ugly layer, just keep carrying on. It just means it's not finished, so it needs more layers. When applying the pastel, now I've started to apply pastel here, don't apply it in too thicker layers because you don't want to feel the tooth of the paper too quickly. Clairefontaine pastel matte paper will take numerous amounts of layers as long as the layers aren't too thick. There's two of the pans I'm using. So if you've never used pan pastel before, which is what I'm using here, they're sold in like little, they look like little cosmetic containers. They're quite expensive. You can buy them in sets or open stock. You can buy the single colours. They run about £9–10 a pot, but believe me, they last for a long time. There's a lot of pigment in one of those pots. Obviously it's probably cheaper just to buy one of the sets, many sets available, and I think the biggest set is 80 colours, but I think altogether there's probably 92 or 97 in the whole range, but they include pearlescent colours as well, which I don't have. So I think I've got about 30 or 40 colours, but they're very blendable. You can mix the colours together either on top of the pan that you're working from, or what I like to do is get a piece of printer paper next to me, take the colours out of the little pans with one of these soft tools. I'll get to those in a minute. Mix the colour on a piece of paper, then transfer your new mixed colour to your paper. You can do it in a variety of ways, and the best thing is if you go for the pan pastels, buy a few, have a play and see how you go. And I love them, but you've got to be working on quite a toothy surface for these to stick. No good going on to hot press watercolour or anything like that, because they just need the tooth to stay on the paper. Okay, so the tool I'm using is a soft tool, and what they are, they're like little plastic palette knives. You can buy them in a variety of shapes, so the ends are shaped differently. I think there's 4 different shapes: round, square, triangle, oval. And then you buy the little foam socks to slot on top. Okay, so the background's in. This video is running at just over an hour, so I have sped everything up quite a bit. If you'd like me to produce a video concentrating on eyes, I can do some big cat eyes or something like that, where I'd actually slow the whole process right the way down. If you want me to do anything like that, pop it in the comments below. If you'd like to see me working in different mediums, pop it in the comments below too. So okay, so carrying on now, I'm just using a blending stump. So obviously the white gouache went on first. I've popped a little bit of pastel pencil on now, working with a variety of different brands of pastel pencils. That's a Carbothello. I work with Derwent, De La Rowney, Caran d'Ache, Pit Pastels, all different ones. It's whatever. That's my Faber-Castell. They're a little bit harder. It's whatever suits my needs at that moment. It might be the colour, it might be the softness. Not all pastel pencils are made the same. Some brands are softer than others. I think the softest brand would probably be the Caran d'Ache, and that is the most expensive as well. The harder ones are these Faber-Castell ones. If I'm teaching a class, I do like to provide them with the Stabilo Carbothello ones. Well, I used to provide them with those. Now the classes I run, students bring their own materials, but they're the ones I'd recommend. If you're going to go into pastel, not got any supplies, I'd recommend the Carbothellos. So I'll shout out when I'm using a Carbothello. So back into pan pastels with one of the soft tools. So as you can see, the little foam sock thing on the end is what you apply the pastel with. Oh, that jumped in there. Spent all day editing this. I had to edit it twice. So hey ho. Anyway, so applying some darks. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, ugly stage, very ugly stage, but it doesn't matter. You're getting your contrast in, your lights and your darks. You're getting an idea of the form of the animal, whichever subject I'm working on at the time, and it's just a case of layering it up. So just pop those layers in. Keep an eye on your reference material and make sure the darks are going where the darks need to be and the lighter areas are going where the lighter areas need to be. Makes sense. Now then, what I do is, those of you that know me, I never work from a printed out picture. I always work from an image on my iPad or on my PC, and I just work from that. And what I'm looking for when I look at my reference image, when I want to apply a base coat, I either squint so I can find like a dark value in the image somewhere on the area that I want to reproduce, or I'll just blur the image out slightly on my iPad. So I tone it down a little bit, take it a fraction darker, and blur it out a little bit. Using Procreate, that's the chosen digital software that I use if I'm using my iPad. If I'm using my PC, I'll use Photoshop. And then what you can do is you can actually, by blurring the image and making it slightly darker, you then copy that onto your paper for your base coats. And the reason I take it a little bit darker is if I went in with the actual light colour right now that's needed, that can be seen on the reference image, I wouldn't be able to go any lighter with any detail work because it just wouldn't show up. So by putting your base coats in slightly darker than the final piece requires, you can then go lighter when you start adding your detailed layers with your pastel pencils. Same applies with acrylics, oils, I work the same as well. So any medium where I can work light over dark, that's the way I do it. And obviously if you're working dark to light with watercolours and things like that, you'd be working the opposite way round. Okay, so building up the layers, ugly stage here. But just trust in the techniques and trust in the process and trust in your materials, and it all comes out in the wash, or so my mum says. Yeah, we get there in the end. So just pushing the pigment down into the paper just with my fingertips. And I did wash my hands very thoroughly before starting this project because I didn't want any oils or anything coming off on the paper. Should I use my fingers? You don't have to use your fingers if you don't want to. As you'll see later on in this piece, I use blending stumps to do exactly the same thing. But I didn't have one at hand at that particular moment, so fingers were used instead. Now this is quite a small little project. It is one that's suitable for beginners. There's no amazing techniques really in this. It's just a process of building up layers, but it is quite a small piece. I think it's about 12 inches across, so 12 by 12 obviously because it's a circle in a square. So yeah, about 12. The actual image itself, the painted image, is about 12 inches across, so quite small. So you're actually seeing this now probably bigger than life size if you're watching it on your PC monitor. If you're watching it on your phone, then you're watching it smaller than life size, unless you've got a huge phone like the old Nokia bricks from back in the 70s or whenever it was. Anyway, so we've got some base coats going into the eyes now, and I'm just getting that shape back. When you're working in pastels, it's so easy to lose your initial pencil lines. So what I did initially, I sketched this little panda out on a separate piece of paper, some mould printer paper. Then using some transfer paper, I transferred my sketch lines over onto the pastel mat. You don't want to be sketching and drawing and things like that onto your pastel mat paper, because if you're using graphite, it's very hard to lift back out. If you make any mistakes there, 9 times out of 10 they're always going to be there. And pastel sometimes has a hard job covering up graphite lines, so just bear that in mind. Sketch and make all your mistakes on a separate piece of paper, and then transfer the lines you actually do want over onto your pastel paper. And that little red nozzle that's shot in there is just a camera lens blower. It's what you blow dust off a camera lens with. It's by Giotto, I think. I'll pop it in the description anyway, but it's ideal for blowing dust off paintings. If you're working with charcoal or graphite or pastel, a quick blast of that, and there's nothing coming out of it except air. So you can blow on your work, but then you always run the risk of spitting on it as well. And yeah, you don't want to do that. That's not archival at all. So yeah, all of the materials I'm using are archival. The Clairefontaine pastel matte paper is acid free. You can also get Clairefontaine pastel matte board, which is a bit thicker. So if I know I'm going to be using a lot of wet mediums on the paper, then I'll go and I'll use the Clairefontaine pastel matte board instead of just the paper. But I've never had the paper warp or buckle on me, so it's really a wonderful project. So building up some layers still. So we've gone in with sort of a tan colour, a yellow, an orange. Now we're going in with a burgundy. And you just keep going, building up different layers. The image I was working from was quite small. There was no detail in the photograph at all in the eyes. So it really is a make it up as you go along kind of piece. Because it's so small, it doesn't matter. So as long as it looks good when it's completed, that's all I'm concerned about. And I will be teaching this particular subject, this image, at next month at Martin Mere, WWT Martin Mere in the UK. That's the Wildlife and Wetland Trust. Next month's workshop will be this red panda. So I'll put a link in the description below if anybody wants to come along. You do need to bring your materials with you. I provide the reference image. traceable lines, so you know, traceable, the outlines of the drawing. I provide all of that, so you don't need to be able to draw. Beginners are more than welcome, because this is sort of a beginner style piece, and all you need to bring is your paper and your pastels and some gouache if you wanted to. Yeah, that'd be fine too. Okay, so that's a blending stump. So instead of trying to get in there with your finger or anything like that, paper blending stump, they're brilliant. And I keep some separate for my pastel work, some for graphite and charcoal. Things you don't want to use the ones you've been using on your graphite and charcoal for your pastel work, because you don't want to contaminate your pastels. You can use graphite and charcoal and things with pastels, but not in this piece. I'd rather keep materials separate, or tools that I use with materials separate. So yeah, this is quite a long video. So after that poll I did asking people if they wanted short videos or long videos or a mixture of both, and a lot of people were asking for the long ones. Well, you've got it again. This is another long one, an hour long. So I hope you can see, by building the darks around the eyeball itself does start to give it that orb, spherical feel. And then obviously putting in some darks around the edges of the eye as well. And obviously with this piece being so small, 12 inch by 12 inch, it's I'm not going to get a lot of detail in there with the pastel work. If I wanted to do a lot of detail on this subject, I would either have chosen a different medium, or if I wanted to stick with pastel and get loads of detail in, I would have done the subject bigger. So they're the two things you can do with pastel, or two of the things you can do. You can do other things too. But if you want to concentrate on really detailed work, either choose part of a subject and make it quite big, so bigger than life. So you could do an eye and do it, you know, the size of an A4 sheet of paper and get lots of detail in there, or a patch of fur and do it a lot bigger. So you can either do part of a subject, or just you do a subject a lot bigger. So I think the pastel matte paper goes up to 50 centimeters by 70 centimeters. That is a full sheet. So I could have done this a lot bigger, but the time factor comes into it. And those of you who watched the last video will now know that I'm actually converting my garage into a studio. So I'm in the process of that at the moment, doing the work myself and my dad. And yeah, so I'm stuck in the spare bedroom at the minute, surrounded by all of my supplies, not being able to move, and really anything bigger, much bigger than this, would be a struggle in that tiny room. So for now, yeah, we make do, don't we? Even if it's a kitchen table, we make do. Been there and done that, working from the kitchen table, dining room table I should say. Okay, building up a little bit of detail now, working dot to light. So you've already got the structure of the form of the subject underneath when you've put base coat layers on, and it starts to become a little bit more fun when you're able to add directional strokes. That was that blower again. Directional strokes for the hair and fur, and then the piece does start to seem more lifelike, more familiar. I think when putting base coats on that ugly stage, sometimes it just doesn't look how you thought it was going to look. And this is something I was going to mention actually. This happens nearly every time I start a new painting. I get my blank piece of paper or blank canvas or blank piece of wood, whatever I'm going to paint on, and for a split second it feels like I've never painted before. I don't know if anybody else goes through that, but it's really strange feeling. And then as soon as you start to put pencil to paper or paint to canvas or whatever, it all comes rushing back. It's a very strange experience, because I guess no two paintings are ever worked exactly the same, and I wouldn't want to do the same painting over and over and over again anyway. but it's just how because I'm self-taught, how I approach all the mediums I work in. It's pretty much the same, how I approach painting as opposed to drawing. Same thought patterns, I guess, but sometimes, yeah, it's like, wow, never feels like I've ever worked with this medium before, when actual fact I've worked with most mediums for like sort of over 30 years, some even longer. So yeah, 56 now, and my mum said I started drawing when I was about 4. She can remember me drawing when I was about 4. Down the garden, we had a big wildlife garden, and I used to just go down there and sit and draw the butterflies and newts and frogs, toads and snakes and things. Yeah, snake in sight. My mum wouldn't come down the garden, but anything else she was fine. Okay, getting some darks in now. So we've got burgundy going in. So just because you see black in an area of a reference image, don't go in just with black, because it will look really, really flat. I know I went in with the black gouache as an undercoat there, but now I'm warming it up using some burgundies. If you want a black area of a painting, whether it be feathers or fur or scales, anything, if you want that black area to look warm and inviting, then think about putting in dark reds, burgundies, warm browns, warm dark browns, anything like that that's going to warm that black up. You can always pop a bit of black back on top, which is what I'm doing now. But think about, do you want your black to look warm or cool? If you want your black in the painting to look cool, then you can add in the base coats lilacs, purples, cool blues, things like that. Just experiment and you'll soon see what a difference it actually makes. Going back in with the blending stump again and blending some of that work out that I've just done. So blending some of the fur together and back in with some darks. So I don't want to go too far down that brown area, because I do know that the neck of the subject is underneath that, and that's going to have to go in first before I apply the rest of that brown fur detailing on top. So whenever you've got an overlap in a painting, I tend to like to work from the background to the foreground. So obviously I got the sky in and a little bit of greenery in first, and then when I do the subject itself, excuse me, I started with the ear furthest away from the viewer, from us, then working forwards on the face. So I'll leave the muzzle, I'll get the rest of the face in first, then pop the muzzle in and the nose and mouth. But then I won't do around the edges, I'll go into the body then and work some of the body up and then finish off the head. So the head's still sitting on top of the body, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So going in just with a darker red, a warmer red. It's a reddish brown. That's a Carbothello. They're the ones I do recommend people getting as a first option. If you've never tried pastel before, people say, what should I buy? Should I buy pastel, the soft pastel sticks or pastel pencils? I'd recommend going with pastel pencils if you've never tried pastel before, because you can cover a large area with them, and you can do detailing with them. Covering a larger area just takes a little bit longer, but they still get the job done. Carbothello with a Derwent pencil holder, pencil extender. So if you work with pencils like colouring pencils or watercolour pencils, pastel pencils, etc., you can wear them down until you've just got a little nub of a pencil that is too small for you to hold. But by buying a pencil extender, you just slot your little nub of a pencil into it and away you go. It's like working with a normal sized pencil again, so you can take it right the way down so there's no waste. And you just pop the pencil in and screw it tight with a little textured ring that's on that pencil holder, and you're good to go. So when we've got white areas on a subject, we've got to remember that really nothing's really stark white. White's reflective, black's reflective as well, but white's reflective. It will be reflecting colours that are around it, and also those white hairs, the lighter hairs, will be sitting over and casting shadows over each other. So just keep that in mind. So don't just, I know it's really, really tempting when you see something white just to do one layer of white, leave it at that. But always looks better if you put a few different colours in with it. Same goes as was saying for black. If you want your white to look warm, you can add some creams. At a push, a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow, as long as it's not too gaudy and in your face, unless that's what you want. If you want your whites to look cool, then you can add a little bit of a lilac hint to it, a little bit of light blue. So obviously it's taken me a long time to edit this today. It was playing up again, so there might be some spaces in here where nothing seems to be happening, but it's probably me altering camera settings or touching the screen on my iPad because my image has disappeared, or just reaching for a different pencil. So this is one of the Daler Rowney pencils. They are, like I said, they are a bit harder than the other brands, but it's what you get used to really, and you can make any brand work for you. If you'd like me to do a pastel painting using just one brand of pencils, say Derwent or Carbothello, whichever, whatever, anything, Caran d'Ache. If you'd like me to do a subject in just one brand of pastels, just let me know in the comments below and I'll do that, as long as it's a set that I already have. Or even if you want me to just use a limited set like 12, a smaller set, I'll find out which 12 colours are in the smaller sets and I'll use them and create a project just to show you that it can be done. Yes, please like and subscribe. That's a reminder to me, for me to say it more than you to do it. But if you've not already done it, that would really, really help. And if you like my videos, please share with family and friends. Obviously don't spam them with it, but please feel free to share my videos on YouTube and Twitter and places like that, and LinkedIn. It'd be great. Really helps the algorithm if you hit like, because YouTube thinks I'll share it with somebody else because somebody just liked it. Okay, so you can see how I've added the lemony colour to one side of the white face patch, cheek patch. Now I'm just going to start adding some base coats to the nose. And what you'll see during this video is I do flit from one part of the painting to another and back again. And what it is as I'm building up a painting, I'm building up a balance. So you want your painting to look balanced, whether that be balance of contrast, balance of colour, balance of detail. And you'll only get that with experience, I guess, of looking at something and deciding what needs to be done next. And sometimes it means going back into a part of a painting you think has already been finished and adding more, or sometimes taking away. So sometimes you might have put too much detail in and you want to lessen the effect. You can go in and soften the detail down. So on my reference image, there's not an awful lot of detail going on in the nose. These are just some of the colours I could see in the photographic image of this panda, Red Panda. So I wanted to put those in first. So I knew that there were lilacs in there, pinks in there, and it's really easy, isn't it, to think of a nose as being black with blacker nostrils and a white highlight. And that's fine if you want something to look quite cartoonish. But if you're going along the steps of realism, and I'm not saying this Red Panda in pastel is an amazingly realistic painting. It's not. It's small. There's some detail in there, but it's small, and yeah, it's just a nice little project for people to do. And I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah, but it's just nice. I mean, a black nose and then trying to get even darker nostrils and then just putting a white highlight on. Yeah, like I said, might look okay for a stylized piece, but if you're going along the feel of realism, then get some colour in there as well. Because nothing in nature is really ever black and white. You know, think of a magpie, when they fly off in the sun and the sun hits the feathers, there's purples and blues and all these lilacs and all these amazing colours, and the same can be said for anything. So yeah so blending out, and it's a nice technique. You can get into really, really fine detail. These these paper blenders come in all different sizes, so you can get really thick ones for blending out a lot of charcoal or big pastel backgrounds, and you can get really, really thin, tiny ones for going in and blending out just a tiny little bit of detail. So, and they're really cheap. They're just pieces of rolled up paper. Apparently you can make your own out of printer paper. I never have. I don't have time really, and I think they're about £3 for about 7 of them in a little pack, so they're relatively cheap, and they just last forever. They go on forever. I have seen people try and sharpen them in a pencil sharpener. Don't do that. Just get a new one. If one's become a bit frayed, just pop it to one side. You'll probably find use for it at some point in your artistic journey, but just grab a new one if the other one's gone a bit fluffy. You could sand them down, I guess, on a piece of fine sandpaper, but yeah, I don't recommend trying to sharpen them. And as for sharpening pastel pencils, the majority of mine I do sharpen with a knife. I take the wood off with a Stanley blade, and then I sharpen the actual pastel pigment itself on fine sandpaper. I have made a video showing exactly how I do it, so how you can avoid your pencils breaking, and that's on the YouTube channel. If I do remember, I'll try and remember to link it in the description below. I'm going in with a little bit of dark on the gums round there, and as I said, I'm working from the back forward, so I'm doing the mouth before I do the muzzle. So before I do any work on the hair on the muzzle, I'm popping the mouth in first, because some of that hair will overhang the mouth, so that's why the mouth's going in first. Ugly layer again, but there you go. I think it's nice to work on the eyes. I mean, the eyes aren't really finished. I do go back in and tweak them, you know, a few times. Put a little bit more detailing in the fur around the eyes, but they're as good as for now. And as I said, as you work through a painting, it doesn't hurt to nip back into different areas and create more of a balance in a painting. I will just grab a drink. And back. I accidentally touched the mic then, so probably anybody listening with headphones probably heard a thump then, but it was only my hand. It wasn't any. I've not been headbutting the mic. So back in with the blending stump again. And when you're doing tongues and gums, don't make the tongues too pink. Try and go for a lilac-y pink or a salmon pink. Oh, so she picks up a bright pink. Yeah, but that's not for the whole tongue. I do tone that down. Yeah, you don't want a bright pink tongue or bright pink gums, because it will just look wrong. And if you can see that in your reference image, is probably not quite true to life. Same goes for teeth as well. You know, teeth in wildlife, they're never pure white. So always tone them down with different colours. So yeah, so that was quite funny, yeah. Yeah, no bright pink for tongues and gums, yeah. If you're going to add a bright pink, add it for the reason of you want it as a base coat layer to then tone down and alter. I mean, you can add anything to your paintings. You know, it's your artistic journey, your creations. You do what you want, but and I just let you know what I like to do and what I don't like to do. But yeah, you be you. We're all unique, and that's and art is just phenomenal, isn't it? That we can all do our own thing, and everybody's different. It's like when I run workshops. I run one a month over at the WWT Martin Mere, and I have a group of people working on the same project normally on a day. And yes, they're all working on the same project. And yes, most of them will be working from a traceable image that I provide. But you can bet your bottom dollar that every single painting comes out differently. It's amazing. People's personalities come out in their paintings. Different techniques. It's lovely. I love teaching. It's a lovely feeling of just guiding and encouraging and hopefully inspiring people just to pick up some paint or pick up some pencils and just have a go. You got nothing to lose. Just, nothing to be afraid of. Nobody's going to be judging you or anything like that. You just play. So there you go, flesh tone. So a little flesh tone colour going onto the teeth there. And toning down that bright pink again. So it will still be there, but it's not sort of in your face. Oh, bright pink tongue. Oh, I'm picking it back up again. And toning that down a little bit as well. So keep blending and toning, and I'll come back to that bit later. As I said, it's all a case of balance. So you're balancing out the painting as you're working through it. Excuse me. Now the paper that I'm leaning my hand on is a piece of Clairefontaine glassine. It's like butcher's paper, I guess. And it just stops your hand from touching your work, and nothing sticks to it, so nothing will smudge underneath it either. So I can move that across my work, resting my hand on it, knowing that anything that's underneath it won't smudge, won't move, won't spoil. So that's great. Glassine is made by other manufacturers as well. You can just go on Amazon, type in glassine, come up with quite a few different options, but the one I tend to use is the Clairefontaine glassine, and I buy it in big sheets. They're 50 centimetres by 70 centimetres, and then just cut it down to whichever size I need for whichever project I'm working on. So just going on with some white. I don't leave it just like this. Obviously the paper is a tan coloured paper. You can get Clairefontaine pastel matte paper in all different colours. I just like to work with the tan, the light grey and the cool blue, or it might be called light blue. They're the three colours that I keep in my little stock. This is a tan one. Obviously I did put a very light layer of white gouache down on that area of the muzzle and chin. But obviously some of the tan still showed through, so you don't want it too opaque that it blocks out that tan. You do still need to leave a little bit of colour coming through to give the fur more depth when you're applying the whites on top. If it was really, really white, that white pencil wouldn't have shown up on top. So just keep that in mind if you're doing base coat layers with different mediums, or even if you were to do a base coat layer of white. You've got to think, are you going to be able to add white details to the top of that? Will they show up? If the answer is no, then you just need to tint your base coats lightly with creams if you want a warm looking white, or light blues and lilacs if you want a cool looking white, and then your white details will show up on top. Just going in, this looks so rough. This is one of those ugly stages, but believe me, it doesn't look like that towards the end. But I'm just getting some darks around that area and blending down with a brown over the areas where there's no gouache, black gouache, because I didn't want it solid. Yeah, that chin looks so rough, but yeah, it's not finished. Yeah, so we will go back to that part in a minute. This is probably a moment where where I'm picking up a different colour. I thought I'd edited out all those little gaps, but obviously not. So burgundy colour going on. I'm not pushing down, I'm just letting the tooth of the paper pick up the pastel pencil. Keep looking at my reference image, making sure my stroke's going in the right direction. That really is important when you're working feathers and fur and scales and things like that. Keep an eye on your reference image, because directions do change quite quickly and sometimes in unexpected areas on animals and fish and birds and things. Just keep that in mind to keep your eye on your reference image. And also when working with fur, there's never any straight hairs. It's they've always got a curve or a kink in them. So as well as following direction, just be aware of the length of strokes you're using and direction, and just pop a little bit of a curve into each line as well, so there's no straight lines going in. So we'd already applied a base coat of white gouache to this ear, left a little bit in the middle, I believe, of the paper showing through, and then just going on with the darks first. So I'm always working dark to light, a little bit of lilac colour going on. That wasn't in the reference image, but I just thought it'd look nice. It'd liven up that ear a little bit. And in with a blending stump, just to soften everything out. His face looks quite cheeky, doesn't it? They're lovely animals. Hoping to go over to Welsh Mountain Zoo this coming Sunday for the day. So take my camera, might take a sketchbook too, weather permitting. We've got snow at the minute, so we'll see. But they've got snow leopards and things over there, so it'd just be nice just to go over and take some more photos. Not that I need any more photos, I've got hard drives full of them, but yeah, you always think you're missing out on seeing something, don't you? So you go back for a few more. It's like bird watching, isn't it? You can see, because we go bird watching quite a bit. You can see a bird and you know you might be 15 feet away, but you just want to get a bit closer. You just want to see it a bit more closer. You think you're missing out on something. Same with photography. You just want to get a bit closer. Think you're missing out on something when you're not really. So a little bit of yellow going in there. Give it a bit more depth and dimension. And not going too light with those colours, because obviously adding the white, if I went too light, the white wouldn't show up. So adding a little bit of more white now. So we're just over 40 minutes in, and hope everybody's keeping well and warm. You'll have to let me know what you're working on. Is everybody working on new projects, New Year's resolutions and things like that? Didn't really make any New Year's resolutions this year. No, I didn't. No, I just took a second there to think, did I? No, I didn't. I generally don't, because 9 times out of 10, if I do, I'd just not do what I intended to do, and then you're just letting yourself down, aren't you? Or feeling let down. You can't really let yourself down. But yeah. And it saddens me when people say, oh, my New Year's resolution is to produce more art. Well, sometimes quantity isn't all it's made out to be. You know, you want quality as well. So just because you're producing more doesn't mean to say that's going to be any better than producing less. Just take each individual painting as it comes. Just learn from it. If you make 10 paintings in a year or 100 paintings in a year, just be happy that you're able to paint, because it's a wonderful, wonderful hobby, profession, whatever. Okay, so back in with the pastel pans, the pan pastels now, using the soft tool. with a clean, I think I put a clean sponge on the end of this one. These sponges, they do last a while, and depends on the surface you're working on. Obviously a rougher surface, a more textured surface, a gritty surface like a sanded paper, then the foam tips will wear out quicker, obviously, and they'll become frayed, and when they become frayed, generally I just throw them away. If you get through a painting and your sponges are in good condition but just dirty, you can wash them, dry them, you reuse them. As long as they're dry, you can reuse them. But 9 times out of 10, mine get frayed before they get really dirty, so I'll just use them for as long as I can. Obviously, take it off, turn it over, because obviously the side that's not touching the paper remains clean, so you can turn them over, take the sock off, turn it over, pop it back on, and then use the other side of the sponge. So you might get 2 paintings out of 1 sponge. One sponge sock. So going in with some reds, I'm using the same colours that are used on the head, but just in different ratios now. So more red, less of the yellow colours. I am mixing 4 different browns together, mixing them on the tops of the little pans as well as on a piece of printer paper, and keeping my eye on the reference image as well. Mixing a little bit of lilac, so I'm using the blue, the light blue that I used in the sky, and the dark blue, adding a little bit of red on a piece of paper, producing that little lilac colour. I don't know if my hand's going to disappear out of view in a minute, and I've not edited it out, although I might have. I can't remember. Yeah, it's just not edited it. There you go, that's better. You can see all my junk on the back shelf there. So yeah, so the head's looking quite pretty and the body's now in the ugly stage. That's just how it goes. Trust your techniques, trust your materials. Oh, there's the pans I'm working with. And those trays you can buy separately, little pallet trays that hold the pans in place. As you end up juggling the pans in your hand. Oh, I did try having a lap tray at one point, and they just slide about in the tray when you're trying to take the pigment out. So those little pallets are brilliant. I believe that if you buy a set, you get the tray, 1 tray with them. So I think a set of 20, you might get a tray with it. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. I think if you buy the full set of 80 colours, the biggest set I should say, you do get the soft tools with them, the little foam socks with them, and I do believe you get 4 of those plastic storage trays as well. But that's the full, if you buy the full 80 set. And as I said, I think there's 92 or 97 colours altogether in the range, but they include pearlescent colours that aren't included in any of the normal sets. So you might be able to buy the pearlescent colours in a set of their own. Okay, so just building up some form, looking at my reference image and making sure the lights are going to be going where I've got them, or I've got them where they are, where they should be. Crumbs, it's been a long day. Putting some lights on now, so some light blue going on top of the black work, and it looks like I'm putting a lot of pastel on. I'm actually not. I'm just letting the paper pick up the pastel off of the soft tool, and then I'll blend it down and push it into the paper with either a blending stump or my fingers. And if you're going to use your fingers, make sure you do really thoroughly wash your hands before you start painting, because you don't want oils from your hands or hand lotion from your hands going onto your paper, because that won't be archival. Building up some darks. Don't forget, if you want your lights to stand out, you need to have darks for them to go on top of. Just patting it on in some places. If I don't want really rigid lines running through the painting in that area, then I'll just pat the colour on. And on with some details. So that's lovely, isn't it, how the lights show up on top of the darker colours. Very effective. Reminds me of acrylic painting, where you can work your lights over your darks. Okay, please like and subscribe. I'm being reminded to remind you, if you haven't already, if you're enjoying this video and you're in sort of 49-50 minutes in, if you're enjoying it, please hit like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really is appreciated. For those of you who have already subscribed, I love you. I think you're wonderful. Thank you so much. And for those of you that have been sharing my work and my channel with other people, I really appreciate that too. As soon as I'm in the new studio, we're at the part now where we're actually waiting for the builders now. We need some brickwork doing and a big window fitting where the garage door is at the moment. That's the bit I'm not going to do myself. It's on the front of the house. It won't look very nice if I have a go. They're just waiting for the weather to clear a little bit. So yeah, but I will do a full, video of the new studio once it's up and running. And once I'm in there, there's going to be loads of room to do all sorts of filming at the easel, filming at a big desk area for watercolours, and I'm going to do acrylic pours, and there's lots and lots of new material, new subjects, new mediums all coming to YouTube. So I'm really excited at the prospect of that. I just need to speed up my editing. I think it's the worst thing. It's the most time-consuming thing is video editing. Crumbs. It's quicker than it used to be, but it still takes a long time. Anyway, back to the painting. So building up texture. So when you're building up hairs, try not to overthink it, because if you overthink it, you'll end up with patterns. And try not to put in any straight lines, because they'll end up looking like rows of soldiers, and that's not what you want. You want the fur to look quite flowy. And don't forget, we're not seeing every single every single hair at its full length. We're seeing the part of each hair that the light is catching. That's what we're seeing. So we're not seeing it from where it comes out of the skin to the tip of the hair. We're just seeing the arc of the hair, or the angles of the hair that the light is hitting. So keep that in mind when you're working hair, fur, both. And if you want me to do a short sort of 10-minute video with a little piece of paper, and I'll just do a little patch of let me know in the comments below, and I'll do that. If it's eyes you're after, if you want to know more about doing eyes, then I do have a couple more videos on my YouTube channel. One is a snow leopard, close-up of the snow leopard face with both eyes. Another one is side view of a lynx, but just the eye of a lynx. They're on my YouTube channel, yeah, which you're on now watching this. So wait till you finish this one, then hop over and maybe have a hunt for those. But I also work in acrylics, watercolours, inks, ink tints, graphite, charcoal. What else? Yeah, a little bit of everything really. So hopefully with this year, when I'm in the new studio, you'll get to see a lot more different mediums, a lot more different techniques. I can't wait just to have some room to move and do bigger projects. Obviously, huge projects aren't going to be great for filming for YouTube, because obviously, the size of the screen, dimensions of the screen, and filming capabilities and all of that come into the equation, I guess. But if I'm working on a really big project, I will attempt to film a little bit at a time, so you see parts of a whole thing, and then I can always show you the completed project at the end, because there have been projects that I've literally just completed, an eagle owl, a mule tiger, but the dimensions, I just couldn't fit the camera anywhere in the tiny room I'm in at the moment. I couldn't get it far enough away from the subject, from the painting itself, to be able to film it properly. But in the new studio, that's not going to be an issue at all, so I can't wait. So because that's when you can really, like I was saying earlier on in the video, that's when you can really go in and work with detail, is when you're working on something a lot bigger. And they were both in pastel as well, so you know, really detailed pieces can be produced in pastel. You just need to work that bit bigger. Putting some burgundy in, just heating that area up. So taking areas darker doesn't necessarily mean you have to dull them down. You can heat things up and go darker. Okay, so as you can see on the darker area of the painting, I have added some highlights, and that was just with a lilac pencil. I think I used a lilac and a cool grey pencil just to add some hairs and highlights to the knee area and to the front of the animal where the front legs are. Okay, base coat layers. Now going on to the tail. Exactly the same colours that I used on the head for base coats and the body for base coats, just in different ratios, so it keeps that continuity going throughout the painting. Now when you're working on something like a tail, especially with rings and patterns, markings like that, very much like ring-tailed lemur, you've got to remember which hairs are overlapping which sections of pattern. So you know that lighter areas are going to be overlapping those darker rings that encircle the tail. So keep that in mind as you're working your base coats. So I'm working, obviously, as you can see, right to left for the base coats, nice and quickly. But once I start applying the detailed layers, I'm going to be working left to right, so that as you work from the left to the right, the layers will overlap the previous layers you've already put on, and that will look correct, because that is the way the hairs are falling and the hairs are growing, I should say. I'm just going to zip my top up if you hear a strange noise. Getting a bit cold in here. Okay, so yes, just applying base coat layers. Ugly stage again. As you can see, everything has gone through the ugly stage, but it's come all right in the end, and that is just knowing your materials that you're working with, and just going with the flow. And I do alter the shape of the tail at the end here, even though it was correct to the photo reference. I didn't like it, decided to alter it. See, you get people, especially with my more realistic paintings, not like this one, but my real detailed large paintings, people will say, why don't you just, you've got a photograph, you've taken a great photograph, why don't you just stick with that? And it's because a photograph is never exactly how I want an animal represented. And if I can do anything with a painting, I could do a wolf standing on a giant jelly. Do you know what I mean? It's just different. Photography that's an art in itself, don't get me wrong, and I love photographing wildlife and then working from my own photographs, but I don't think I've ever just copied one of my photographs like for like. I've always altered things, altered compositions. I might find the perfect pose and photograph that, but it's never in the environment that I want it to be in exactly. So, and contrast, I like to alter contrast and colour and tone and hues. All of those you can alter in a painting. Yeah, you can alter them on a photograph as well with Photoshop, but I never get that satisfaction from altering a photo as to creating a painting. It's something completely different. I just love to paint and draw. It's just, I guess, in my DNA. It's just something that I love to do. I always have. Hopefully I always will. I feel the need to create, and yeah. So as you can see, working left to right because the hairs need to overlap. So the hairs that I'm putting down are now overlapping the hairs that I've already put on. Hope that makes sense. I hope just visually it makes sense as you see me do it. Very quick. This tail took, you know, sort of 10-15 minutes maybe. Very quick. I don't want the viewer to be drawn into the detail, any detail in the tail. It's irrelevant. Want, you know, people to look at the face, obviously, the eyes, but it's such, as I said, it's such a small painting. You can't really go overboard with the detail in an area, in a painting such as this. I think it would spoil it. It would probably look very plastic if it had too much detail in anyway. So just some highlights. Obviously you're not seeing, as I said earlier, you're not seeing the whole length of a hair, so don't draw them in. You're just seeing areas of the hairs where the light's hitting it, going with different directions, but these are just sort of hair tips that the light is catching that I'm putting in there. None of this is in the reference image. It's, well, some of it is, but not a lot of it. So play with your contrast, play with your colours. Definitely hype up contrast, because contrast is what people enjoy looking at, whether they know it or not. They're drawn to paintings with higher contrast, regardless sometimes of colour and anatomy. It seems to be more contrast that draws people in. So going in now, I did a very rare thing. This Daler Rowney pastel pencil I actually put through my manual pencil sharpener, and it worked quite well, but then I ended up going back to sandpaper and sanding it down anyway. So every time there's a pause, I'm either wiping the darker pigment that it's picking up off the tip so it doesn't transfer it, or I'm just gently running the pencil across a piece of sandpaper. There you go. And really I just keep going in and popping in a little bit more detail, a little bit more glazing. So I did go back in eventually and put some tones over the white, and there you have him. Well, that's another video completed. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you if you've stayed for the full length of the video. Please join me over on all the social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter, which is available over on my website. That's www.kerrynewell.com. Okay, stay safe everybody, stay creative, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.